Welcome to Falcons Ledge. I'm Austringer. Today we're going to be covering our second episode in our tier list series for 2024. D-Drake is a really busy guy these days, so he couldn't be here, but we'll try to get him for the Highland list. Let's get down to the tier list. We define mid-tier as a single or set of sticks totaling over $150 and under $280 with shipping included. Stick packages that are a combo, such as a HOTAS or HOSAS, will be taken into account. We'll be including only packages that are available from the vendor, so if sticks are not sold as a package, they won't be included as a package on this list. Prices are common pricing and does not take into account what might be on regional sale or temporary sale, but it does account for those that are always on sale. These are the prices that you are typically able to acquire the sticks for. It also doesn't take into account used or refurbished items. So let's start out with the Logitech X52 Pro. You can get these from Amazon for $229. This edition of the X52 features dual sensors, a few metal bits, and a little less toyish color scheme when compared to the X52 standard. Even with that, the 80s called and they want their future concept joystick design back. On the positive side, there are a couple of high wear items such as the cup and cone portion of the gimbal that does tend to wear badly and it replaces it with metal. The dual sensor tends to hide the fact that those sensors are pretty bad, but only slightly. Unfortunately, it still uses the same flawed design for the gimbal, the same bad ergonomics for the stick, among other negative features. Furthermore, this comes from a company that hasn't produced a new product for its combat sim segment in over a decade, which means that this is a dead ecosystem. Don't purchase products from a company that doesn't care about your hobby. This is a solid D tier, especially when it's compared to the other sticks on this list. Next up, we have the Thrustmaster T16K FCS HOTAS. You can get this also on Amazon for $169. This includes the T16K, as we spoke of in the value category, and includes the TWCS throttle. Speaking of the TWCS throttle, it does offer a decent mix of hats, a mini stick, and a rocker access that can be used as a rudder, as well as being a pretty good value for getting into a throttle. It also includes the T16K stick, which, while being fairly accurate considering it uses the Warthog sensor, which, 10 years ago when it came out was really good, now it's pretty good. It unfortunately does bring a lot of issues with it, like failures of the Z-axis, as well as being pretty light on functions that are actually on the grip itself in comparison to other solutions in this category. The throttle can have issues with stiction and things like that, though there are community mods that can mitigate that issue, as well as some other professionally offered mods. As throttles go, it's a decent starter. But as a package, the stick really kind of brings this one down when you put it into this category. It's going to be C tier. I will note though that if you're looking to get a HOTAS on the cheap, you could always pair the TWCS with a Gladiator NXT or a Winwing Ursa and get a bit more bang for your buck, but can't be calculated into the tier list because those aren't the same company. Speaking of the Gladiator NXT, that's what we're going to go over now. This stick was the easy pick for bang for your buck in many previous year tier lists, and it is still a good solution today. It has an excellent quality for cost ratio, good buttons and hat switches, plenty of functions, excellent customizability, and great customer support through its community and customer service. The NXT is not without some downsides, such as the gimbal design, which has noticeable bumps in the axis, which you can definitely get accustomed to, and it's not really a big deal once you are, and a couple of odd sharp spots in the moldings. This is a solid value, even in this tier, though it does fall short in the ruggedness when compared to its metal counterparts in some regards. That said, this list certainly takes value into account. A tier. There are a few subjects that I will flat out argue about on forums and my comment section. The X56 from Logitech is one of those subjects. You can get this device from Amazon for $249. The X56 is definitely the better looking sibling when compared to the X52. Obviously, beauty is in the eye of the beholder here. On the positive side, it has a lot of buttons and switches and axes. Unfortunately, the switches were placed by someone who has never actually used a flight stick before, because there are several hats on the grip that are extremely poorly placed, having really badly shaped hat caps, and they feel really cheap. The cheap feel may not have been an issue 10 years ago, because many of the sticks in this category didn't even exist back then, but they do now. This stick suffers from the same badly designed gimbal that the X52 uses, with some slight differences. The throttle isn't bad, some odd placement of buttons and hats, some questionable choices on switches and things on the throttle itself, but nothing near as glaring as the stick. Unfortunately, the throttle is not sold separately, and if it was, it might actually be a good solution to pair with better sticks, but it's not. As a result, I can't stress enough how much I don't recommend this device. There are better solutions available for similar, slightly more, or slightly less money, like the Gladiator plus TWCS, or dual URSAs, or the URSA with TWCS, or any other combination. Get anything else that's better than this thing, because this is a pitfall of garbage. It does have a ton of buttons, so that helps it out a little bit. I'd love to give this bottom tier, but it is better than the X52 Pro in value because of that button count. So, C tier. Please, still, do yourself a favor, don't buy it. There's better available. With that, we're moving on to the big dogs. The sticks at the top of this tier, price-wise. We are now going to talk about the ubiquitous Thrustmaster Warthog. This comes in at $279. In 2010, when it first appeared, it stood alone, better than really anything else out there. It set the standard of what a good joystick was, and it was also the device to beat in years to come. Some obvious foreshadowing going on there. This features a metal grip, a metal case, metal triggers, good feeling switches, a good sensor, great at the time, the F16 grip, also available with the F18 grip sold separately, and given that it's the Viper's grip, you'll be getting great ergonomics, great button placement, and a convenient system for swapping grips if you should so need it. This sounds pretty amazing so far, and it's pretty good. The problem really comes into the fact that it's still built exactly how it was 14 years ago. And things have advanced beyond that during that time. Back then, there was no mainstream competitor offering metal construction, so there was no real need to build it with a metal gimbal. In my opinion, this was a huge mistake, as their moldings for their ball and cup gimbal tended to have rough spots, and as such, they inevitably created stiction in the gimbal, especially if you didn't perform any maintenance such as replacing the grease. Furthermore, the gimbal was much stronger in the center, spring-wise, than towards the edges of the axis, which is very undesirable. The most desirable configuration is a softer center and harder outsides. That way you can make small adjustments easier. But since they really had no competition, nobody said anything about it. Today, we do. So it has to be mentioned. It should also be mentioned that servicing these can be an issue, and I'm mostly talking about the stick. If they are out of warranty, Thrustmaster won't even sell you the parts for the stick. I know this from personal experience. And once you acquire them and open the stick, the excessive use of glue and some questionably bad soldering, combined with very brittle wires, and I have a stick that was dated 2021, can result in a lot of broken solder joints, broken wires, even if you are being careful. And that's coming from someone with experience. That said, they should last you a great long while before you get to this point. The only reason I had my 2021 stick open is that I dropped it and broke a plastic part. If you like the grips, they're pretty decent. I'd recommend pairing them with another base though. If we're talking quality and usability on its own, this might sneak into A tier. If we're talking gimbal only, then we'd probably put this into C tier because of the aforementioned issues, not because it is a bad product. But the thing that really hurts this is its cost. It is very overpriced for what you get, so it has to go into B tier. Lastly, we're going to talk about the Winwing Orion 2 Viper Ace EX. This can be acquired from the Winwing US store for $241 or for a bit more from Amazon. The Winwing Orion 2 is an all-metal stick and all-metal base. This is, in my opinion, a standard for sticks to come in higher priced tier lists. But you can have it here for $241. This represents what I consider to be the best bang for your buck stick combination, bar none. You can get all the buttons you might need for modern flight sims, an F16 grip, which as we covered before, having great ergonomics, but the hats in the Winwing Orion are some of the best feeling hats that I've ever used. They have great squish in them, they have a great tactile activation, the sensors in the Orion are on par with its competitors, the gimbal can be modified to have different feels to it or different spring forces, and offers dampers for those who know how great damping is. However, this is where we hit our first snag. That is an additional $59, and that would put it out of range for this tier list. So none of that can be taken into account. My experience with the Orion 2 was excellent. I had 0 failures. I used it for 2 years. I really only ran into challenges after adding the FSSB modules, which is where I found that some of the bolts inside weren't totally tight. That didn't affect me in my normal use, but it did affect it with the MFSSB. That brings me to a couple of challenges with the product. There have been some that have run into issues with quality assurance with some Winwing products, and that needs to be mentioned. Their customer support typically takes care of issues, but they operate through translation programs and sometimes take a while to respond. These two things have to be accounted for in the rating. Without these QA and CS issues, this would be a really easy solid S tier. As a result, the best I can do is A+. We'll put it into the S tier because I can't place it between, but this is still the best value in sticks in this category, and it has some of the best features as well. But definitely be aware that these issues can occur, and perhaps at a bit higher rate than some of its competition. And that's the mid-tier list, folks. Do you think I missed sticks between 150 and 280? Do you think I'm very wrong or very right? Let me know down in the comment section down below. Just as a disclaimer, I have no issues with people disagreeing with me or disagreeing with others, but as soon as you go into personal insults to me or other comments, I'm going to delete your post. Let's keep the discussion civil, but I do love to see the discussion going on. I've got a lot of great content coming soon. Please subscribe if you haven't already. It's totally free. It won't cost you anything. If you want to give in some other way, there are links to do so in the description for that as well, if you have the means and the desire. This channel is non-profit, meaning anything made from this channel or donated to this channel goes right back into the channel in an effort to provide you all with this content for free. I do hope you've enjoyed the video. Have fun, fly safe, and have a great day.